It was October, but it was warm outside. Like, I think it was 70 degrees. So we went exploring and we walked, I think it's like a half mile-ish from the club actually to where the water is. I think it was low tide, so a lot of the sand was showing. And we stood on the edge. It was just so beautiful. The next thing I remember is I was being dragged, like I stepped too far in the water and it was my knees below and those were being dragged across the sand. It was scratching against my skin a little, clawing my way back up, but I just didn't feel like I had any control at all. And I got hit in the face with a wave because they're coming from all directions. And they're just like small and choppy, but then they're bigger than you think and they're just rapid firing. Then it's a little bit hazy. By the time I had clawed back onto this triangle, Bailey and Declan were swept out on the other side. So Skylar, I watched her turn and run and jump off of the edge of the sand into the water, which was pretty crazy because at this point, Bailey was getting further away and Declan was floating off to the other side. And then I started to process what was going on, and then I remember I felt emotions start to bubble up and then I swallowed so that I would stop feeling them. All I could do was yell and wave my arms. I remember later reflecting and thinking that I felt super useless.
The effect of this water has not changed. It still draws me in. It is still incredibly beautiful and daunting and different to anything I've seen. The North Atlantic versus the South Atlantic versus the Cape Fear River. This is the place where the ocean goes to war with itself. I don't know, there's just something about it. I feel like I'm always going to be called towards it for the rest of my life.
I watched Declan come in on one of the sides, like he kind of washed up to the right. The next thing I remember is the feeling of Declan's skin. It was cold, and then he was coughing up water. His lips were a little bit blue. And so as soon as Declan stood up, the panic set in, and I just sprinted. It felt like it was taking me a really long time to run. Felt like every step I could feel it hit the sand, and it just felt like time. I was racing time, and I was so worried that I was losing. I grabbed her hand and we ran back to the point. I didn't see Bailey and Skylar at all, and my heart started to drop so fast because I was like, what if I am taking my best friend's mom to the place where her two daughters drowned?
I didn't expect to still have a hard time with it after all of these years.
to the left of Declan, I saw their figures laying on the beach. I got on the sand next to them and we just laid there for a while. And then I remember the feeling of Bailey's hand in mine, and it was also cold. It was cold and clammy, and her pulse I could feel in my hand. It was really light and thready, and she was quiet, but she just smiled softly.
Even though we did all live, those moments of wondering and those moments where Bailey told me she didn't know if she was going to make it, and that if Skylar hadn't jumped in the water after her, she probably would have just let go. That will always haunt me. I will never not think about that. Being so close to losing her will always make me reflect on what could have been done differently. The truth of the matter might be that we did everything right and still they barely survived. But I'll always wonder.